Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into the language that makes the web feel alive. I'm talking about the engine behind pretty much every interactive thing you do online. Yep, we're talking about JavaScript. You ever stop and think about that? When you fill out a form and it tells you there's an error before you even hit submit? Or you see a cool animation or watch a newsfeed update by itself. What's the magic making that happen? 9 times out of 10, that's JavaScript doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So what is it, technically? Well, it's a client-side programming language. And that client-side part is super important. It means the code runs directly in your browser, on your computer, not on some far-off server. And that's what lets it make changes on the fly without that annoying full-page reload. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with its origin story, the spark of the web. Then we'll get into the essentials with a coder's first toolkit. After that, we'll see how to make our code think, how to write it smarter, and finally, how to get good at the art of the fix. Okay, let's start right at the beginning with the spark of the web and find out where JavaScript even came from. I absolutely love this analogy because it just makes so much sense. If you think of HTML as the bare bones of a web page, the skeleton, and CSS as the skin, the clothes, all the visual style, then JavaScript is the brain and the nervous system. It's the part that lets the body actually do things. And it all started way back in 1995. You had Netscape, which was a huge deal in the early days of the web. They created this little language for their browser called LiveScript. A bit later that year, in a brilliant marketing move, they teamed up with Sun Microsystems, who made the very popular language Java, and they renamed it JavaScript. The name had basically nothing to do with Java, but it stuck. And now, well, now it's everywhere. And this is what it looked like in the beginning. Super simple. You'd have your regular static HTML page, and then bam, JavaScript could just inject a new line of text right into it. It seems so basic to us now, but back then, this was a revolution. A document that could change all by itself was a total game changer. Okay, so that's the history, but how do we actually write this stuff? That brings us to our next section, a coder's first toolkit, where we'll look at the absolute fundamentals. First things first, you need a way to store information. We do that with variables. For a long, long time, we only had var, but modern JavaScript gave us let and const. The big difference is they're block-scoped. Think of it like keeping your kitchen ingredients in sealed containers instead of just leaving them all over the counter. It keeps things tidy and prevents variables from spilling into other parts of your code and causing chaos. It's just cleaner and safer. Oh, and const is for values you know you're never ever going to change. And these variables can hold different kinds of data. You've got your numbers, obviously. You have text, which we call strings. You've got booleans, which are just simple true or false values. And then you have null, which is basically a way to say, yep, this variable exists, but I've intentionally left it empty for now. So we can store data. Great. But the real power comes from making our code do things with that data. This is where we get into making code think, giving it the ability to make decisions. And the main way we do that is with functions. A function is just a reusable chunk of code that does one specific job. You write the recipe once, and then you can use it 1,000 times. It's pretty simple. You use the keyword function, give it a clear name, tell it what ingredients or parameters it needs, and then you write the instructions inside the curly braces. And here is a perfect example of that in action. The code grabs a number someone typed in. Then, inside a function, you have an if-else statement. This is decision-making 101. It checks, is this number positive? If the answer is yes, it does one thing, in this case, popping up this alert box. The code literally just made a choice. Now, knowing the basics is one thing, but writing professional, high-quality code, that's another. So let's talk about writing smarter, using modern tools and practices to keep your code efficient and easy to work with.
A few habits really make a difference. Using strict mode is like turning on a really picky spell checker for your code. It catches common mistakes before they become big problems. Avoiding global variables keeps your code from getting messy. Using descriptive names, that sounds obvious, but you'll thank yourself 6 months from now. And the really big one, learning to handle asynchronous stuff, like waiting for data from a server, using modern things like promises. It keeps your whole app from freezing up.
And this quote just nails it.
When you handle that asynchronous code badly, you end up in what developers call callback hell. It's this ugly, nested pyramid of code that's just a nightmare to read, let alone fix. The goal is always to keep it clean and easy to follow.
The great news is you don't have to do it all alone. There's this amazing toolkit that modern developers use. You have tools like ESLint to find errors, and Prettier to automatically format everything so it looks consistent. Then you've got Babel, which is like a translator that turns modern JavaScript into code that older browsers can understand, and tools like Webpack and Jest help you package your code efficiently and test it to make sure it actually works.
But let's be real. Even with all the best practices and the best tools in the world, your code is going to break. It just is. And that's not failure. It's just part of the game. So let's talk about our last section, the art of the fix. Debugging. It sounds intimidating, but all it really means is being a detective. It's the process of finding and squashing those bugs or errors in your code. Every single developer, from a beginner to a senior engineer, spends a ton of their time doing this. So how's it done? Well, your web browser has powerful developer tools built right in. The basic idea is you set a breakpoint, which is like a stop sign for your code on a specific line. Once it's paused, you can step through your code one line at a time, you can dive into a function to see what it's doing, and then step back out. It lets you watch your code execute in slow motion. Check out this calculator example. Let's say it's broken. Maybe when you try to add 5 and 8, you're getting 58 instead of 13. A classic bug. By setting a breakpoint on the add button, we can pause the code right as it's trying to do the math. We can look at the variables and see, aha, it thinks 5 is a piece of text, not a number. And just like that, you found the problem. So the takeaway is this. JavaScript started out doing simple little tricks, but it has grown into the powerful, essential engine that drives the entire web as we know it today. It's what turns static pages into living, breathing applications. We've seen where it came from, how to write it well, and even how to fix it. The only thing left is to actually do it. Your entire journey can start with just one single line of code. So the only real question left is, what will you build?